If you're looking to be a better bike owner in the new year, there are 4 bike parts you should be checking every 100 to 200 miles to avoid costly bike repairs and riding an unreliable bike. Today, we're going to cover these 4 items, why are they important, and how to check them over. Now, let's talk about bike maintenance. I do want to make sure you're already doing the basics, properly inflating your tires and lubing your chain if you have one. I'll put some links to other resources in the description below. The items I want you to be checking out are considered true wear items. Your brakes, your tires, your drivetrain, which is made up of everything that moves that rear wheel forward when you pedal, and then any safety items like your kickstand, a steering rod on a cargo bike, maybe your child seat or trailer install. The reason I tell people every 100 to 200 miles is because those variables are always changing and you just want to have a good routine of just checking over these bike parts. It takes maybe 5 minutes once you're used to it. All right, did I convince you? All right, now that I've convinced you that you should also be checking these bike parts, let's take a look at how to do it. While I get my bike in the bike stand, make sure you hit subscribe for more content like this. Checking these items does not require a repair stand, but it does make it easier. It also makes it easier for me to show you as I make a video by myself. Let's talk about brake pads. If your brake pads wear too much before you catch them, they could ruin the rotor of a disc brake bike, or if you have a rim brake, it will actually wear down the rim and sidewall of your wheels. The good news is they're very easy to check. Look down from the top or end of my bike in between the brake calipers. If you're having difficulty seeing, shine your light through back at you, and this should be able to illuminate that disc brake pad and be able to see it. A disc brake pad typically has about 3 to 4 millimeters of pad when they're brand new, and you want to replace them when they're about 1 to 1.5 millimeters. It's super helpful to look at your brakes when they're new so you have a sense of what they look like when they're fully at 3 to 4 millimeters. The rim brakes are pretty easy to check. Looking down at the pads, you want to see grooves left in your pad. Some brake pads have marks on the pads as wear indicators. The other thing to look for on rubber brake pads is that there isn't anything stuck in the rubber, like metal shavings that could be wearing on your brake surface. The other thing with brakes I like to check is that when I pull my brake levers, they don't come all the way back to the bar or pinch my other fingers. If they come all the way back to the bar or feel very soft, this typically indicates worn brake pads. The hydraulic brake line might need bled, or the cables might need tightened or replaced. So from your brakes, we're now going to look at tires. Every 100 miles, I'm checking that there isn't anything stuck in my tires, and I'm looking at the tread. I do this by just slowly spinning the tire. For the front wheel, it's pretty easy. I'm just going to be picking up, at the handlebar or at the fork and gently spinning it. The rear wheel is a little bit harder, especially on a bike like the GSD or HSD that have big fenders. So for those, I'm typically going to be using a stand or standing it in that vertical mode. So what I'm looking for is that there aren't any big cuts in my tires, that I can still see the grooves in my tires. These are really important for braking, turning, and riding in wet conditions. And then I'm looking at the sidewall of my tire to make sure threads aren't showing. Now let's talk about your chain, cassette, and this whole drivetrain. There are going to be 2 things I'm checking on a chain. The first is it lubed properly? Over-lubing is just as bad as under-lubing. If you want tips on how to lube your chain, look below for a dedicated video on lubing bike chains. The second thing I'm looking for is chain wear. When a chain wears down, the bushings between the links are actually what's wearing, and the distance between them is greater. This can then wear down your rear cassette, cog, or front chain rings. Our ultimate goal is to catch the chain before it is 75 to 80% worn. So how do we know how worn your chain is? With a chain tool. This chain tool is about $14, and if you do it right, you're gonna save yourself a lot of money because you can often replace 2 to 3 chains if you catch them in time before they wear your cassette or chain rings, which are much more expensive. I personally use the Park chain checker. This is the CC-2. I've tried some other ones. This one works really well and it's pretty simple to use. What you're gonna do is you move it to 0, you drop it into one chain link, the other pin into the other end. Carefully, don't push it because you will bend these pins on the bottom. And you're gonna just see in the middle what number it ends up at. Ideally, again, we are catching your chain between 75 and 80%. All right, we've covered brake pads, tires, drivetrain. The last item, safety items. And what I mean by this, it's things that get used a lot that might loosen. As you get to know your bike, you'll learn what needs to be checked every 100 miles. For my road bike, I'm checking my saddle rails where it connects to my seat. For some reason, setting it to the max torque, it still loosens up after 150 miles. So I'm always checking this. On my cargo bikes, I'm checking that the kickstand works properly, is tight, and I'm gonna pull it up and down, make sure it's lubed, all of those things. When I was riding a Bakfiets box bike with the big box out front, I was checking to make sure my handling felt tight. If I had a wobble, I'm just making sure that swing arm is nice and safe. If I'm carrying kids in a seat, I'm making sure that seat is tight, connected, nothing's worked loose, nothing's, the straps are all working well. If I use a trailer, I check the trailer hitch mount and I'm checking the tires on the trailer. If none of that makes sense, that's okay. I just want you to check it. If something seems like it's off, take it to a mechanic. The ultimate goal here is to keep your bike safe and reliable. Doesn't mean you need to fix any of it. It just means that you need to know when something's not right. Okay, that was a lot. Let me know what questions you have, what comments you have, maybe what I missed. And if there's anything specific there, if you want to learn how exactly to use a chain checker, if you want to learn how to replace brake pads, any of those things, let me know in the comments below. All right, great. Thank you so much for watching. Until next time, stay well, stay good. And remember, bike more and worry less.